welcome to the Filmmaker's Corner, brought to you by the Primal Group. My name is Michael Bachochin. I'm here with my co-hosts, Peter Murphy and Connor Heck.
Hey, hello.
Hello.
This is our first episode. We are here to talk about why we are here and what this podcast is and what to expect in the next few months in Season 1, and all of the topics that we may or may not cover, and a little bit about us and who we are and why we think that this podcast may or may not be relevant to you.
Very true.
It might suck.
It could.
I don't know.
So my name's Michael. I am a producer, writer, and director. We all live in Los Angeles. The Primal Group is my production and distribution company. Peter and Connor here both have worked for me in the past and actually now produce with me for the Primal Group.
Yes.
And that was kind of the inception behind the Primal Group. Not the Primal Group. The Primal Group's Filmmaker's Corner was basically... I was really pushing to have these guys move into the producing realm with me, and this is kind of our first foray into that as a team. Isn't that right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this podcast is, I'm excited because it's not just, I feel like a lot of film podcasts are kind of one note to some extent. So we're going to have interviews with industry related people like actors and filmmakers and producers and kind of talk about like the minutia of like the film industry.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to have episodes more for just like general film lovers, or we're just kind of a group of us who's just going to have fun and talk about movies we love and why. And we're going to even do some like watch alongs. So we're going to like watch movies, good or bad, and kind of riff on them and give everyone a sync point to watch along with us. Maybe do some drinking games with the movies. It'll be kind of fun. So it's going to be like a fun, just sort of like an open space for filmmakers, for people who love movies, and just like all the groups of people that we hang out with and our kind of rapport with all of our film friends.
Yeah, I think it's trying to hit home for people that are in the industry and people who aren't. So it's kind of demystifying a lot of stuff that might be daunting to some and not to others.
We're just regular people.
Yeah,
Just a bunch of nerds.
exactly.
Yep.
We'll be bringing you all kinds of interviews. We'll be having dial-ins, people around the world, filmmakers around the world. We're going to obviously, we're shooting during coronavirus here, so we're in lockdown. We're not bringing anyone international here. We will be trying to bring as many LA guests as want to show up as possible. We've already got a bunch scheduled to bring for you guys. And with that being said, we want to dive in a little bit about who we are and why exactly we're doing this podcast to begin with, and maybe a little bit about how we got to this point.
Yeah, I think best way. I'm going to interview you, Michael.
Great. Let's do it.
Michael Bachochin, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming. How did you get into film?
Welcome to the Filmmaker's Corner.
Yeah, welcome to the Filmmaker's Corner. Let's start there. What is
The heat's on.
what is the story there?
Oh my gosh.
Who
Okay.
is Michael Bachochin?
Who is?
So I've been writing basically for as long as I can remember. I would definitely identify as a screenwriter, so I think that's an important part of the filmmaking identity, that I carry. I've been writing for literally ever. Basically by the time I was 2 or 3 years old, my parents were calling me, my parents and extended family referred to me as the storyteller. So I think it was just kind of a given that eventually I would go on to tell stories in some capacity. Fast forward, through my life, I really didn't have much interest or involvement in film, the visual arts, anything like that. My mom was a painter, but I always sucked with my hands. I wasn't good at sculpting or anything, painting, drawing. My brother was great at that stuff, but I was terrible. I could write, but nothing visual. Eventually got into music, did the band stuff. And then when I was about 12 or 13 years old, I started watching movies, and that seems ridiculous because it's like, well, 12 or 13, like why am I watching movies at 12 or 13? I grew up in an incredibly conservative household to the point where I really was pretty sheltered and not allowed to watch films. So I really didn't start exploring until I was 12 or 13. And one of the first movies I watched as I started to explore like the realm of movies available at the time was 28 Days Later. And
Same.
yeah.
Yeah. That was a big one for me.
And I just remember that scene with Cillian Murphy when John Murphy, the composer of 28 Days Later, In a House in a Heartbeat, which then was, after that movie, used in like every damn horror trailer like ever, that was in a theater, because it just set the mood impeccably well. And, when he like jumps onto that soldier and like gouges his eyes out. I like had like an emotional damn experience with that medium. Like in that moment, it was like it was like that weird, like, wow, what's happening right now? Like as I'm watching the movie, like what's happening to me? You know, like the change is happening inside me. And I'm being really facetious about that. But you know, like the movie ended and I just like recollected and couldn't understand that I'd had such like an emotional experience with a film before. And that like the medium touched me in such a way. And then all of a sudden it became this drive that it's like telling stories on paper is not enough. Like I can get halfway there, but I can't get like there. I can't.
A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, I can't reach out to my audience and like literally and viscerally touch them like that experience I just had with 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
And you know what Danny Boyle crafted in that film. And then obviously I had the very stereotypical, you know, 14, 15 years old. I then saw, of course, I saw Fight Club and had a very similar and it wasn't until Fight Club, because I'd had that experience with 28 Days Later, that like emotional experience, and I'd like really kind of started to like move into like being interested in film, but I didn't really understand like the capacity of what I was trying to figure, like what I was trying to find in it, you know, what I was actually in it for. And then I saw Fight Club, and you know the ending scene with the Pixies, you know, Where's My Mind, you know, that iconic, you know, buildings collapsing, you know, shot.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like, wow, like we got here from there, like the beginning. And like that emotional ride along the way, and how I feel about like the world after this movie.
Yeah.
You know, and you just start having those experiences enough. And, you know, I think number 3 was probably Requiem for a Dream. And we're not going to go past 3, but like, you know, these very like defining experiences with the medium where I all of a sudden was like just very viscerally thrown, like basically against my will to some extent, you know, like with movies like Requiem for a Dream or like even Fight Club, where you're really just dragged along and you're kind of like insufferably along for it, whether you want to be or not. And to experience that as like an audience member was like, oh my God, I didn't know artists had such like an impact and could have such power.
Yeah. And those movies, from my perspective, knowing you as a filmmaker, those types of like kind of heady, like psychological thriller type things, like I can see how that shaped your sort of taste in your art. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like those almost traumatizing experiences with the medium, and not traumatizing is like such like a vindictive word, because it infers that like it was like a bad experience, but it wasn't necessarily a bad experience. You know, like watching Requiem for a Dream is like kind of a terrible, awful experience when you really know what you're watching, but like it's a beautiful film. Yeah, and it's like a beautiful conveyance of like the themes that Darren Aronofsky was trying to like, you know, convey.
Yeah. Not necessarily traumatizing, but like stuck with you.
Yeah. It's just impactful.
Those movies, all those movies you listen, just get into your bones.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
And you know, I just really like kind of avoided that as a kid. So then to like have that like as like a later, you know, like a teenager and then like young adult was just like, oh my God, like what is this? You know, like this is weird. Like, and then, you know, like in casual life to not really have that kind of experience with anything else. Like, you know, you don't go to Applebee's and have that experience typically.
Hopefully not.
Crazy.
Hopefully not.
I mean, you're not. I mean, if you're having an emotional experience, you know, please DM me and let me know.
I want to go to that.
I want to go to that Applebee's.
Hell yeah.
But you know, so it's like it was like this really like life changing and lens changing event where it was like, I have to do this because like I didn't know that there's so much power that you could like evoke. So you know, I got into doing like really crappy like improv, you know, because I didn't know what else to do. Like
you did improv?
Yeah, I did.
I didn't know.
Is there somewhere we can see this?
No, absolutely not.
Can we do an improv episode,
no,
please?
No.
Are you saying, okay, when you say no, absolutely not, is that a real thing, or are you saying that because you don't want people to see it?
Privately,
Both.
we'll cut this
Is it
out.
filmed?
Can we watch it?
It's filmed.
Is it available?
No.
For us?
Do you have it?
Probably something.
Okay.
Yes, we're watching it.
Mark my words, we are going to release this at some point on the podcast.
No.
We're going to do a react
They're really bad.
to it.
There's some really offensive ones.
Like
I would be really
wait,
traumatized.
like open mic?
if they surfaced.
Open mic, like stand-up comedy improv, or like
No,
comedy
like skit,
sports?
like skit comedy,
Like
Oh,
comedy
okay.
improv. Like improv
Yeah.
comedy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Like,
and.
like skit,
Yes,
like
and yeah.
you know, like very much like Whitest Kids You Know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
IFC.
Yeah.
You know.
When was this?
Ooh, like 14, 15.
Oh, well, of course it's gonna be crass and embarrassing. That's part of it, right?
Ooh.
At 14.
Ooh. There's some bad ones.
I can't wait. Tune in next week.
All right.
We'll be watching.
But we're gonna
Improv
move
with
on
Michael
past that.
Bacochin.
So anyway, so I basically did like the improv thing for a while growing up in Wisconsin, southeast Wisconsin, and there's not much of a film scene there. Surprise, surprise. And so I was doing the skit thing, and my parents were like, what the hell? What are you not doing film? Like, you got to go to school for a real thing, of course. And
Even as your mom being an artist.
my mom was definitely more supportive. My dad at the time was like, you need to go to school for business or something that's a real career. Like,
That's fair.
get your shit together,
Yeah.
And long since changed his mind, but like at the time it was like go to school for a real thing.
Especially not being like in a film town. That's like
Yeah.
people don't think of that.
Yeah.
It's so
Doesn't
foreign.
seem
That's
even
not a
possible.
career path.
It's so foreign.
Yeah.
Like, how could you relate to that and even understand that that's like a real job, like
Mm-hmm.
that people actually make like a living and can cash like a paycheck week to week on that. So I did that, and I did the skit comedy thing, and then just kind of like a combination of being discouraged and just like not really having like the discipline to stay committed because I wasn't in an environment that like fostered filmmaking. I basically like kind of lost touch with it for a while, got into music, focused on school, and basically just like kind of like lived life, so to speak. For
This is like high school.
yeah,
Yeah.
for like more or less like a decade.
What kind of person were you in high school? Were you like a jock, a nerd,
Oh, I was
an
definitely
edgelord, a
jock,
stoner?
no, I definitely had zero self confidence.
Do you get shoved into lockers?
I wasn't that bad.
See, I didn't even my school. I didn't even
'Cause
have.
I
I didn't have full size body lockers where you could push someone in. It was
Otherwise,
it
Connor
was
would have
like
been
a
in
foot
those
tall.
motherfuckers.
Our lockers were tiny.
I always like regarded myself like in retrospect as like the nerd who'd give you a black eye. Like I was definitely like a nerdy kid, but like I put my foot down.
So you were like the bully justice YouTube videos
no,
where
not
like
at all.
the
No.
nerd beats
No?
up the bully.
No, because I was like 2 years younger than everyone in my class. So I was
Oh.
like the baby. Like I'd stand my ground. I'd get the shit kicked out of me, but I'd stand my ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, mama didn't raise no bitch, like, I wasn't, gonna get the shit kicked out of me.
By the way,
without a fight.
merch coming soon. T-shirts saying "Mama,
Mama didn't raise
no
no
Mama
bitch."
didn't raise no bitch. The Primal group. All right. But anyways, yeah, so then I at a certain point I basically decided like I was somehow reinvigorated, and I honestly don't even know what it was, but at a certain point I was reinvigorated that I was like I need to go to film school. I need to like do something with film. I went to Columbia College in Chicago for a semester. Total going to school, like my personality type, going to school as a filmmaker was a total waste of money, but I had to know to go, I had to go to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I dropped out immediately and like basically took the money I was going to spend on college, started putting it into short films, and basically just started chugging away until I ended up shooting a feature film in Wisconsin. And then I felt like I reached, a glass ceiling, because it was like, well, what now? What next? And like
big
there's
fish, small pond.
yeah, and there's no, and like when you don't know, when you haven't functioned in like a functioning industry, you don't know how to be the big fish in the small pond, because in retrospect I was very far from the big fish in the small pond. Even though I felt like it, I was very far from it.
Mm-hmm.
And because you don't know, like you need to know how to harness that power and that like those
Sure.
those
Yeah,
connections, like so you got to move to a hub city, New York, Atlanta, LA, and so moved to LA 5 years ago and just started grinding and producing here, and I've basically just been producing ever since.
Which leads us into Peter.
Shit.
How did you meet Michael?
I met Michael, piggybacking off moving to LA, about a year and a half ago. I moved down to LA from Wisconsin, same neck of the woods.
Almost same zip codes.
Yeah, almost
Like,
same zip codes, very close.
By the way, when I think of Wisconsin, I just think of that '70s show. That's all.
It's not, that town doesn't even exist.
it's the town in that '70s show is I believe it's supposed to be Kenosha.
Really?
Which
Like
yeah,
it's like inferred that it's Kenosha.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
but
You guys
so I
into
moved
cheese?
down.
March cheese
We
castle.
fucking love
You guys
cheese.
into cheese?
God, you have no idea.
What's your favorite
dude.
type of cheese, real quick, before you tell your personal story?
Munster? all the way.
Munster, Michael.
I actually think I got to go with Oaxacan cheese. I'm gonna go.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm going.
Cool guy.
I'm going down
Classic.
I mean, I'm a pepper jack boy. You know what I mean?
Of course you
Can't
are.
go wrong.
Of course you are.
there. Anyways,
Okay, so I moved down to LA, and I knew one person out here when I moved out here, and I have a random roommate. It's just a friend of a friend, and I'm just hitting up Facebook group after Facebook group of like, I just want any film job because I didn't move out here to fucking.
If you don't live in LA, that's like how for a long time it felt like that's how all the work was.
Yeah, Facebook.
For a long time, like exclusively, it was like non-union work, Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore, but
yeah. So I'm hitting up thing after thing on Facebook, hoping something pops, and then it's like midnight on a Wednesday or something like that, and I'm still just like sitting in bed scrolling through Facebook, and I see random pop up like need someone PA/grip for tomorrow. So I'm like, okay, I'll hit it up. Why not? So I hit it up, and then Michael responds. It's Michael's post. Responds like almost immediately, and he's like, okay, we can get you down here tomorrow. I'll pay this. I'm like, is this a scam? Like how? Like I don't just hit someone up on Facebook and it works. But I go tomorrow. I drive like 2.5 hours to, I don't even know where the fuck it was,
Orange County.
to Orange County, fucking real far.
What part of Orange County?
We were shooting in Rancho Santa Margarita.
Rancho Santa
RSM,
Margarita.
dude.
Yeah.
I'm from that area. I know RSM.
RSM, but
It's far. It's far. From LA, that's far.
yeah, but I
Hour
was
and a
like,
half.
why not? So I don't know if Michael knows this, but I think I had to be there at like 8.
It was like 7 or 8.
7 or 8?
It was early.
So we'll say 8. I had to be there at 8. I showed up an hour early.
Were you there really?
I wasn't at the place, but I was like an hour early, but like 5 minutes away because I was like, I can't be late to this. This is because in my mind, I'm thinking I'm in LA. This is the one. This is the big break.
You're
so
on,
I show up.
You're on
I'm-
Hollywood.
I'm
Studio
literally.
back
I'm
lot.
sitting in my car on like a side street, like 10 minutes before I'm supposed to be there. Like, all right, I'm gonna be the first one. So I show up, just PA grip, and Michael's like, oh, I'm shooting a movie later. Maybe you want to be in. Blah 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 blah. And then we have hung out a few other times, and then all of a sudden,
Well, can you back up? You need to real quick explain, like, what exactly is a PA? Just for
Oh,
anyone who
okay.
at this point doesn't have that,
way back up, PA.
that terminology.
So I signed up to be a PA/grip. Grip, rigging, setting stands, frames, diffusion,
Sandbags.
sandbags. PA,
Coffee bitch.
coffee bitch.
Gopher.
Yeah.
And
Gopher.
in the best
Meaning-
case scenario,
meaning you go for
glorified.
anything.
Glorified. But you can't make your
Yeah.
movies without them. So,
Yeah.
like 100%.
Worst job ever. But
It's purely a
necessary.
stepping stone position.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big time.
Yeah.
It's like a
Entry level.
training to be whatever the hell it is that you are
Mhm.
going to be.
Yeah. It's pretty much a job to be in the same place as someone that you want to work for.
Yeah.
Pretty much it. But so I do that awful PA shit, which obviously, I mean, working for Michael, it's not that bad. But then we kind of just hit it off, and then fast forward to 6 months.
Yeah,
Something
probably,
like that.
probably.
Something like 6 months. And Michael's shooting this feature, and he's like, "Do you want to work on it? It's what it is." I'm like, "Yeah, why not? I mean, I like Michael. I got to work on something." So I work on that, and
What did I hire you as?
he hires me as the gaffer on that, which is what my background was, anyways. So it was like a huge thing. Like, sweet, I get to gaff.
That's a
something
big
in
position.
LA.
People don't know. That's like
Yeah.
you're the head of the lighting
Yeah,
department.
yeah,
So,
a key position.
yeah.
And we worked on that, hit it off, and here we are today. And on that, we go over to Connor,
Oh no.
who I met on that. And
Yeah.
I guess Michael did as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my name's Connor. I'm a cinematographer, and so my best friend / roommate / creative collaborator, Sean. I had heard of Michael. I never met Michael. Sean had worked with him on some Lifetime movies that Michael was producing, and I was aware of him, and Michael apparently was shooting this feature film that he was directing, and I think Sean. I always get the details blurred, but I believe Sean. So Michael's fiance Brooke, who was co-producing, she had blasted an Instagram story saying, like, producing this feature film, looking for a cinematographer, inquire within, kind of a thing. And I believe Sean sent me that Instagram story or whatever, and then I just responded to it, and we set up an interview, and because I think you had maybe had a DP lined up originally, like a cinematographer.
No, I was gonna shoot it.
You were gonna shoot it.
I was pissed off because Brooke was trying really hard. She's being a real good producer, but I'm a really hard director to produce for, and she was not giving
Yeah.
me DP candidates that were up to par.
Worthy. Yeah, so you were just gonna go, like grassroots it and shoot it yourself, but luckily you didn't because I got a job. But yeah, so I responded to the DM or the Instagram story, and then set up an interview like a couple like day or two later, and then I was sent the script. I read the script
Because you were like
the
last
night
minute
before.
as hell. It was like I remember Brooke being like,
Yeah.
I was already in my mind like I'm shooting the hell out of this movie myself. I don't care.
You
I'm
were
like I was so irritated with dealing with DPs, and Brooke's like, no.
I think
like,
we were
have
like
one more. Like
yeah, and I think we're like 2 weeks out from shooting.
yeah, it was like nothing. It was
which-
like it was like not
Damn.
long.
For people that don't know, like pre-production, like preparing for a feature film shoot, like at least a month, if not like a couple months, a few
Yeah.
months,
Yeah,
to
definitely.
prepare for everything. I mean, you had already had a lot of your kind of ducks in a row. So we did this
I was
interview.
gonna shoot it myself. I was determined, man.
Yeah. So we did this interview at North Hollywood. I was meeting with you and Brooke. I hadn't met either of you before. And I remember we got coffee, sat down, started talking, and I had read the script like the day of or the night before or something like that. And I started kind of just gushing on like this. I love the script, and like I was trying to get the job, but I was also being genuine. I was like, I love the
Hamming
script,
it
and then I started listing like, it visually, like these things come to mind, these inspirations, like, like all these types of things, and you were like on the same page. We clicked right away, I remember, and you were just like, yeah, exactly, like, and plus this, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't even think of that, So we just we just sort of clicked immediately as far as like I could tell because I think we have similar like sensibilities.
similar kind of
as
storytellers.
filmmakers. Yeah, and I just knew not even maybe all of the inspirations you had while writing the script, but I visualized it in a way that I think you definitely like responded to. And you hired me on the spot pretty much.
Yeah.
And we ended up talking for like 2 hours. And then Brooke was just kind of rolling her eyes and like, I just want to go home. Like,
Well, at a certain point, remember,
this
do you
interview
remember-
should have been like 20 minutes.
Do you remember she was like she at one point interrupted us and she was like, I hate to be that producer. She's like, but we've been here 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
And our parking's up and we need to go.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yep.
I was like, all right, mom, like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And but no,
take me out of playtime.
I guess I did a good job in the interview. And so very quickly soon after we were preparing for the shoot.
I mean, I think we were basically like storyboarding it in the first meeting.
Yeah.
I
And
think.
obviously this was Parallax that we're talking about. And we were like already like coming up like, how should we approach you know what I mean? So it was so funny. I've never had an interview that went that way. But
That was weird. It was
it was
serendipitous.
cool. Yeah. It was kismet, as they say. But yeah, so yeah, nailed the interview. Hell yeah. And then, yeah, we're like starting production 2 weeks later. So we just immediately started like, okay, this is our watch list of movies to like kind of build our visual language, And so we started like watching all these films, like Green Room, and we were kind of pulling inspirations from like David Fincher and
Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot. A lot of our framing is like very Mr. Robot inspired, like lots of headroom and
Some of like the
Negative
David,
space.
some of the David Lowry aesthetics and the Shane
Yeah.
Carruth aesthetics.
yeah. And it was interesting because like I didn't know Peter, I didn't know anyone. I knew zero people on this. I'd never known anyone, so I was hired last minute. I didn't know anybody, and it went well, I guess, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I guess. Yeah.
clearly. Here we are. Well, how many years later?
We shot a movie a year.
I don't know. It's
A year
longer
and
than-
change.
It's been
1
longer
years
than that,
later,
right?
we're here.
We-
1 years
We
later.
wrapped shooting over a year ago, so
Yeah.
Fair.
yeah. So should we talk about Parallax a little bit?
Yeah, so Parallax is a science fiction thriller about a young artist named Naomi who wakes up in a life that she doesn't recognize. And it's basically about her journey to find the truth in a life that she doesn't know if is real or not. We shot it on a low budget in Los Angeles in the summer of 2019, and it was a good time. We did all kinds of crazy things. We did desert locations, city locations. We did underwater locations. We just really pushed the limits on everything that we thought. Basically, if we thought it would cost a lot, we tried to approach it and say, how can we do it and make it not cost a lot?
Yeah.
Cheap.
Yep.
And that was kind of like the goal, maximize and stretch the dollar and maximize the production budget every step of the way.
I think we came from a similar place too, Michael, where like we had worked because like a lot of kind of like your day job, I guess, is like line producing like bigger features and producing bigger features, and then my day job is like working in the union as like a camera assistant, and like kind of basically like both of us worked on bigger productions, but we also did all these like kind of like more passion projects and no to low budget shoots. And I think that was like a big part of like our approach of like how do we maximize our production value and make it. And that's what I think it also serves the script in a lot of ways too, because the script feels like a very like on a more meta scale, like you have elements of like the Matrix and like a Christopher Nolan like Memento kind of a thing happening, and like David Fincher inspired things, and it's like very big conceptually, but it feels like a small like passionate like indie film. And I think that's like a perfect like representation of our approach from like our backgrounds too, like how we were able to get the movie made was like we've worked on big and we have worked on small, and we were kind of like meshing those together, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, and there's such a point to be made about like commercial design films versus art films.
Yeah.
And the difference in how you spend the dollar on them, you know, because films of commercial design, it's not about style or aesthetic. It's about maximizing the dollar. It's about making everything as shiny and glimmery and glitzy as possible. Whereas the art film is like, let's play in the mud a little bit more. Let's get creative, you know. But when you live in one world or the other too stringently, you know, you're really missing out on opportunity to like exploit your own skills, you know, because it's like, the one side of it, you know, the commercial side of it really shows you how to push that dollar. And so then if you can come into the art world where you're always pushing dollars because you never have enough, you know, it lets you as like a director, as a producer, writer, whatever it is, you know, like that experience, you know, like working these commercial design films, it lets you like exploit your vision much better and like execute it in a much more organized fashion and coordinated fashion, you know?
Yeah. And as much as you guys are blending these big shows and small shows, I think that's where I came in, where all I ever knew was small shows in Wisconsin, was like little tiny things where you had to get the most out of every little bit of equipment or crew or location. And I think having that experience bled into it as well.
Well, I mean, that kind of mentality sets you up for like success, because it's like, when you bust ass on an indie film and you get onto a studio, like a studio set, or even like an indie,
like a cakewalk,
or even an indie set that's like following a little bit more like studio protocol or like, you know, union guideline, you know, more or less. It's like, damn, like, wow, I can't believe like, I don't have to work
I don't
that
have
hard.
I don't have to touch that thing. Cool.
Like
Sweet.
work doesn't have to be like literally like wiping sweat from my brow and like my heart palpitating, like, you know, like it doesn't have to be
I'm
like
not
that all the
panicking
time.
at all moments. What is going on?
Totally.
Boy, is that a familiar feeling? Gosh.
Yep.
All too familiar.
But anyways.
But yeah, I mean, so we all work together, and since that movie, which is in process of distribution, we've all worked together. Obviously, we're launching this podcast. Peter's like gaffed a lot of stuff I've shot since. We've just clicked, and the whole crew, like Yusuf, our editor, is like helping us with the podcast and stuff. So it's like definitely like a family affair, I guess, this whole thing. And that's what like kind of the spirit of that movie, like it was just a bunch of different creative filmmakers coming together and like forming a bond. And that's kind of what we want to do with the show, is just kind of bringing people into the fold and like kind of discussing and learning from people and them learning from us, and just sort of like, you know.
Well, the Primal group is a group. You know, and on its most like meta conceptual level, you know, it's about this community effort to, you know, like bring art to the community and the community to the art, you know, and it's like that. It's the idea that like both economically and systemically, like our industry doesn't exist without this very direct interaction with the audience, and that like when we start putting up these weird barriers, like, you know, like Marvel and Disney, you know, and like that they do with their actors and their executives and like the glitz and glam of like the industry, it really like puts this weird barrier between you and your consumer. And it's like, we're just people too. Like
Yeah.
we are equally consumers as the consumers are of our industry, and it's like we want people to understand that, and that like we're just level-headed people.
Yeah, I think part of the birth of Parallax is we like a certain kind of thing. We want to make the things that we like, and I think that comes into this podcast as well. Is like we want to make a podcast that we would want to listen to and like hear about the things we would want to hear about.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So over the next few weeks, few months that you'll be listening with us, we'll be bringing you all kinds of interviews, all kinds of guests. We'll be touching on everything from movies that we produce, films that we distribute, films that we're working on, to every kind of industry guest that you can think of. We'll have them on the show. If you have suggestions, recommendations, someone you'd love to see us interview, talk to, obviously, please shoot us an email. We're open to almost anybody. As long as they fit in the film category, we would love to talk to them. If you have recommendations for a topic you'd love to see us cover too, obviously, the comments box is always open. Peter and Connor, do you guys want to add anything before we close out?
I mean, yeah, just, again, like you're saying, like just we're going to be picking people's brains, kind of learning from people, seeing like how some of the big dogs work, and then just kind of like letting people listen to, a lot of like film lovers, just like listening into like our group of friends and like just talking about movies and riffing on stuff, and and just sort of like join our group of friends, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's living in the film world. It's so commonplace to talk about all of these things with film people, but I can't have these kind of conversations with like my friends that I met in high school or something like that. And I think this podcast is kind of making that all normal and making it so everyone can talk about this film stuff that we all love so much.
Hell yeah.
We want filmmakers, we want non-filmmakers, we want people interested in the industry, not interested in the industry, everything in between.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll be launching new episodes every Tuesday on theprimalgroup.us. That is our website, theprimalgroup.us. New episodes will be up weekly. You can also check us out on YouTube and Vimeo, The Primal Group. We will have all of those links in the description. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Keep up with all of us. You can also find me on Instagram at MWBachochin. Connor and Peter, please plug your Instagrams.
Follow me at connorheck.com, connorheck.com. Follow me on Instagram at connorheck.dp. Posting Primal Group stuff, Parallax stuff, other things I work on. Just kind of a cinematography hub, I guess, is what I'm spewing out.
And I guess you can follow me on Instagram. It's Peter_Doyle_Murphy. It's not that great,
Very
but
concise.
I mean, come on, why
He
not?
posts
Just check it
a
out.
lot of basketball stuff.
Yeah. Do you like basketball? I have a cat. If that's not enough to sell you, then fucking don't follow me.
There you go. There you go.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in for our first episode. We hope you will stick around. We hope to hear from you. Any comments, please reach out. Again, you can find us at theprimalgroup.us. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great week.
Peace out.